everybody, you're listening to, and if you're on our live stream, you're watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, stream in. And we don't have a movie episode this week. After 3 episodes, we give a little bit of a break. I know some people went to the movies, but we're not doing a movie-oriented episode this time around, which is a nice break. We're going to get back to our regular roundtable. We've also not done much in terms of news lately, so we've collected like a few news tidbits that we'll be addressing right at the top of the show. How you guys doing in this heat? It seems everybody's contending with it.
I don't mind it.
I don't like heat.
It's the humidity.
Yeah, and I live in Arkansas.
Heat, humidity. I don't like being hot.
Yeah,
ever.
Well, it's like too bad because you are. I don't know what you're doing.
Thank you. You're just saying that because I had a birthday.
Yes, it was somebody's birthday this week, wasn't it? And what? Also, the birthday, not just of you, but of our fine nation.
They always have to bring that up. You know what peer pressure that is? You know, I can't imagine what people who were born on Christmas go through.
It's the same thing.
It's a syndrome. There are fireworks, but none are for you syndrome. It's a very, very lonely angst that takes over you. But I did have a good birthday. Yeah,
get older and have. Yeah, get older and have 3 dogs, and that fireworks thing becomes a different feeling. So there's fireworks, and fuck every one of them. You don't want them to be for you.
Yeah, you know, for me with fireworks, like you seen them once. Yeah, I've never been, and I really hate like because we're not in an area where we have like the neighbors shooting stuff off. I mean, that's just not the kind of just not the kind of neighborhood we're in the suburbs here. And I know not everybody is in that kind of bracket, and not everybody in the suburbs is in that kind of bracket either. You know,
we not only have the fireworks,
bad apple could spoil everything.
Yeah, we not only have the fireworks, but we have the assholes who go out and like shoot their guns in the air. Like, and I'm just like, hey, those bullets are coming down somewhere and into somebody. So maybe stop.
Yes, I mean we have the same thing. We actually, my dogs are usually fine. They completely don't care about fireworks, but Minerva saw our neighbors across the street in the street shooting them off, and that freaked her out to no end. She jumped on me and was like shaking like crazy, and I was like, oh my god. And then of course, you know, after they went back inside with all the other fireworks going off, guns going off, she was like, absolutely ignored everything. I don't know, I think it was just the fact she could see it. I think that was was scary to her. Oh, David Hazan has just joined as well, and he is reminding us that he's in the Southern Hemisphere where it's cold.
I would be very happy to join David. I would be, you know, there's an old Human League song, Up Here This Summer's Shorter and Winter's Very Cold. I'm looking forward to the life, my lonely life. I'm looking forward to the peace my lonely life will hold. I'm like all aboard with that. I would be fine in like a cabin with snow coming down at this time. There you go. Death Drop.
Speaking of David,
by whom?
Mr. David Hazan, among others, among a very other former.
Oh, and Lucas, that's true.
Yes. So, and you know, David did continue here, beating the meat with the comic book bears. I mean, heat. Yes, heat. Yes, beating the heat with the comic book bears. Yes,
it's a family show, sir.
It is family. We also have Kevin Quass.
Kevin, hello,
joining us. Yep, great to see the Bears live. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for joining us live.
Slack family, very happy to have you aboard. Try not to
welcome. Well, I mean, besides the
I worry about because I've been so used to the movie episodes after like a month and a half of them that.
And I think
strange to get into a groove,
We got a little bit break, but then next month we've got Blue Beetle coming out. So, I mean, I guess we're going to have to talk about that. So,
but then we have decent breaks, though. I mean, Craven and the Marvels and Aquaman.
Aquaman.
Yeah.
It's all end of the year.
And Aquaman's over the holidays, so God knows
Yeah.
when we'll be talking about that. So,
But we've
Sometime
got
in 2024.
It's not a movie, but we've got Secret Invasion right now. So there's still cinematic experience.
yeah.
I didn't say it was a good experience. I actually like it a lot.
You do?
I know it's not. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm enjoying that.
I'm bored senseless with it. And this was the last property I thought would be boring.
Well, I mean, I'm in the middle of you two because it's not what I was hoping it would be
At all.
But some of the performances, I mean, Olivia Colman in anything, she makes pleasantly evil just seem wonderful. I just love her torture / interrogation techniques, and just the comments that she, the reports she has with Samuel L. Jackson is unexpectedly great.
Mm-hmm.
And of course there's surprises and there's, some interesting developments, but it's not, maybe it's the pacing. Maybe it's the sense of urgency that I should be having, but I don't.
Yeah. No, I'm just not engaged with it at all.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a big story. Hey, Tony.
Yeah, we got Tony Gilkinson joining. Hey guys, how's it hanging? And we also have John Westhoff giving cowboy horns. Hey, John.
Oh, I thought that was Indiana Jones.
Maybe it is Indy. We did name the dog Indy, but so I did see that. I saw that movie, the latest Indiana Jones. It was a lot of fun.
I've seen concerts. Yeah,
you've seen live music and live performance.
Camelot with a new book by Aaron Sorkin. I saw that yesterday. It was my Broadway birthday show. I also saw a punk rock musical, which was about it's called Good Vibrations, basically around the Good Vibrations label in Northern Ireland in the late 70s. So it had music by Irish punk acts like the Undertones and the Stiff Little Fingers, and I saw that. I saw Tears for Fears with Cold War Kids opening at Madison Square Garden. I saw Sparks at the Beacon. Yeah, I've been out and about. I just haven't been at the movies.
Well, after you've seen all that, the movies are just boring.
No. There's movies I want to see. I saw movies on TV.
Yeah.
One might be a Woof.
I also saw one on TV that is a Woof. So
okay, good to know.
You're talking about those. But I also caught Transformers last night, the new one, which I know it's been out for a little while, but it was me and about 15 teenagers. So that was an interesting experience.
At Transformers this late in the game?
Yeah. Well, it's a Wednesday, it's summer. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm like, man, somebody needs to call their parents. They're chatty. These are chatty teens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to enjoy my Hasbro, toy-based film here. And here they are just chattering away and applauding. Whatever.
But did you like it?
I liked it. It was goofy. Mm-hmm. It was goofy. I mean, it was not as goofy as Fast X.
Mm-hmm. I have never seen any Fast and Furious films. I even own some digitally somehow, through offers or something. But I've never seen one of those films.
I mean,
you're not missing a lot.
Not that I have an aversion to it, because I watch some schlocky shit. But I just haven't, Just haven't.
I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting series. It is comic booky as all get out, because there's stuff that happens where you're like, oh, come on, actual suspension of disbelief is absolutely necessary to watch these series of movies. After maybe the third one, it just is so wild. But it's fun diversion. That's a real popcorn movie. But yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
but I do have to say,
what do you need to say there, Steve?
and I will bring it up when I talk about one of my books, something that was in the Transformers movie that is interesting.
Cool. Excuse me. So as I said, we tease news. So Steve, let's go to the news.
Can't
That's where we
find
insert a really cool audio thing. But you won't get that on the live
someday.
Someday.
So we had this. There was one interesting sort of comic-related thing that just popped up today that I hadn't seen in the past week, and that was because I used to read Valiant all the time. I still buy every book that Valiant puts out, singular, because they really only put out one book a month, maybe. But they are no longer printing, publishing, distributing their own books. It is basically all being handed over to Alien Books. Is the name of the company. Obviously, the licensing is still owned by Valiant, which is owned by DMG, the investment firm. But basically, all the publishing duties and what they're going to be putting out is all going to be handled by Alien Books now. And right now, they only have the Exo Unconquered series and the new Ninjak Super. I believe it's Ninjak Super Killers comes out later this year. That one originally was supposed to be published earlier this year, but again, because they've been having a lot of trouble, they laid off a lot of people, and now, of course, essentially.
There's had a lot of attrition too, though. I mean, there was a lot
of people left. A lot of people left. A lot of people laid off. Which was just too bad. But I mean, Valiant's been there before. I mean, we've seen the same thing happen in the late '90s after they collapsed. The first time. But they were putting out some really amazing books when they came back in 2012. Really loved a lot of their stuff over the past couple of years. Even they've had some good stuff, but the outputs dwindled to next to nothing.
What would you say was their peak output? Were they about around 7 books a month, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 7, sometimes 8 books a month.
Yeah.
Just looking at the back flap, what they would just say like what we're publishing this month. It was always a full page. So.
Yeah, especially during the Harbinger era. Like that was, I think that was kind of when they were at their peak.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. I think they were hitting some really great titles out there, and they always attract a ton of great talent. Wonderful artists, wonderful writers. I mean, Lemire is writing for them. Valyakov. Let's see.
Liam Sharp is doing Exo Man of War for him right now, and it's amazing.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's gorgeous. Their current books are good. I'm reading Bloodshot and Exo right now, and both of them are awesome. They're fantastic. It's just not, it's not the heyday of when that team, and most of the people who made that company really fire on all cylinders are now the bad idea guys. Which is not firing on those same cylinders.
It's not necessarily. It is true to its name.
Yeah, you can't put that lightning back in a bottle, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah. But
we'll Caleb, I hate to tell you this, but you're frozen.
That figures.
And you have a very concerned look on your face.
It is very concerned. It is a very concerned look.
Is it better yet?
Bob Layton talking about Valiant. You have like a very Bob Layton face.
Oh no!
I need to figure out how to change my little thing underneath my name that just says has a Bob Layton face.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Kevin mentioned here that he was also into Valiant for a bit. Lemire was great, and I had to say Bloodshot, the Bloodshot series that Lemire was writing. Oh my god! I mean. I had never really liked Bloodshot before that, but reading Lemire's take on it with blood squirt and just how human he made this character was absolutely outstanding.
I always gravitated toward the lighter end of Valiant because I would say my favorite books were Archer and Armstrong and Faith. So I always seem to go toward the lighter end of it. There's a lot of but just because
Quantum and Woody.
Only so many dollars you can spend.
Exactly.
On stuff.
Kevin also mentions here, don't tell Brian N about that that about Bad Idea, that it was a bad idea.
He loved those books.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
hey,
but-
no, the books were great, but like the whole idea around them, unfortunately, was pretty bad. Distributing, marketing, comic stores hated them. Just
Well, I can understand the apprehension of any comic store because they're not being solicited through in a fashion that stores are used to. So gauging what the actual interest is probably really difficult. I can tell you the few LCSs in New Jersey that I went to that distributed Bad Idea stuff, they always had copies on hand.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything that ran out.
Well, and for all of their gusto and their bluster about what they won't do, they announced either today or yesterday they were going to be doing digital comics.
Yeah.
So, like, look, I don't want to knock, like, they've stayed in business a long time. They're doing great things, and to his point, people do love them. They're great books, but there's not a comic shop that sells them near me. There used to be, but it folded. And Brian will be the first one to tell you there's ways that you can go about getting those books without going to a comic shop. But I've got plenty of books. I don't need to jump through hoops. If you're going to make me jump through hoops, I'm going to spend my money on something that's easily accessible. This is entertainment to me. This is candy at the store at the register. I'm not going to like I just want to reach over and grab the sweet and then walk out. I'm not going to fucking work for a chocolate bar.
I mean, I always appreciate the, whether it's like what was the, Kirkman's done this a few times with books that were at least initially only available at the shops.
Right.
And
Exclusive.
I don't have any problem with that, but it seemed that Bad Ideas mentality about it wasn't as beneficial to the shops. It was more of a publicity. It was just mining publicity, and they didn't really. I didn't get the feeling they gave a rat's ass about the stores.
Well, they don't, but they'll also, and to their credit, they'll tell you that the whole thing behind their idea was to create, it was to create a collectability sense. Like that was the whole thing. We are going to create the collectibleness of this thing. We're going to manufacture it instead of just hoping that it happens the way that everything else happened. New Mutants 98, who knew that was going to be the book it was? Well, if we limit the amount that's out there and we kind of control the dispersion of that, then we can create a collectability aspect around it that will increase its value and make it do all these things. And that's bullshit. You can't do that. You can't manufacture that kind of magic. It just doesn't work.
No.
I mean, just look at the Lonely Ape or whatever, the NFT market, which just absolutely collapsed this past week with all those NFTs that just there's if you create something with the full intent of just making it collectible without really pushing the fact that maybe they've got some great ideas, some great books that are being put out, and finding ways to put these books into people's hands, and instead just say, no, I don't want to put it in people's hands. I want it to be really hard to find. I want them to be extremely expensive, or no, not expensive, but like very difficult, so that it creates scarcity and then desire to put, instead of just saying like, we've got an amazing book, you should want it. You should desire the great story or the great art or the team that's on this book, rather than like, oh, I got to collect it because it's going to be worth something because there's not so many of them.
Well, and to that end, before we jump off of this subject, though, they weren't even the first ones who had that idea. I mean, what was that company, THC, something that put out the book, like Garth Ennis and Steve Epting, Sarah? That was their thing. You can only get our books in certain places. You can either buy them by single issue or you can buy them the little box sets and everything, and they're awesome books. But what are they like? Other than just a few, I don't know if they're putting out any more stuff, and you just don't see them. I mean, the word of mouth isn't there, and that doesn't diminish the quality of the product. It's just a statement on the I guess the manufactured hope of what it's going to be. And again, with something like this, it's already a niche market. I don't understand the mentality of comic book companies wanting to take an already niche product, an already small and not very well advertised and dispersed product, and then limit just how many more eyes are going to see it. That makes no sense to me. Makes no sense at all.
And your frozen, the frozen face that you have now just really does, intently express that concern.
Yes.
the way you feel.
I'm sorry. I
Kev-
have no idea what's wrong with my Wi-Fi. It hates
Oh,
streaming for some reason.
It's all good. It is all good.
Yeah.
Kevin actually makes a comment here. I don't know any comic stores in Central Iowa who carry Bad Idea, and he goes to all of them. And I'm too lazy and have too many books already. I'm into comics. Like there's you can't really put a lot of real estate in your life to for more comics that the publisher doesn't want you to have. Okay. And that actually leads me to the next story. And that is talking about San Diego Comic-Con. I know we've got something, what's not going to be there, but first, what is going to be there? Distillery, or DSTLRY, is a new, publishing incentive, publishing initiative, imprint, etc., that strikes me very early on as the Bad Idea imprint, but possibly done well because they are not trying to limit the availability of these books. They want these titles to go in people's hands. They want people to be able to buy them. They want people to, stores to be able to get them easily and to get pre-orders in for them. They are launching their sort of like, it's a preview title, sort of like a 0 issue that contains stories for each of the 8 titles that they're going to have at launch. But some of the names that they have on here as well. We've got, Tinian IV, we got Christian Ward, Mirko Adolfo, Jock, Steve Orlando, Becky Cloonan, Tula Lote. So many people are working on these, great titles that there's an excitement there. There's, there is a demand for this, and it seems like they want to actually, put the books in people's hands and make it easy for stores to order. So maybe they're the good idea version of Bad Idea.
We'll see.
But they're excited. They're going to be launching at San Diego Comic-Con, so people who are there are going to get a special, be able to get special covers of the launch title, and of course see a lot of the creators there.
I got to start hitting people up because there is one San Diego book I want to get. That the Alex Ross, the recreation of New Teen Titans #1 cover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Want that?
I do want that.
That's gorgeous. I saw that the other day on somebody's Insta page. I think it was Alex Ross's. Actually, they was just promoting it. It's just that George Perez, those costumes. It's just
Chef Keys.
$30.
David has David has also mentioned TKO does have a direct to customer and direct to stores model. I think that was Caleb. I think that's what you were talking about. That
it was.
But that's it is good that they're doing that. But yeah, again, compared to Bad Idea, where it's like, no, we don't want you to buy them, but we want you to want to buy them. Yeah, that doesn't really work. But yeah, speaking of DC is actually going to be back on the floor. They're going to have a nice big booth. They did not last year when SDCC came back from the COVID hiatus. And they've got plenty of great panels. They're going to be talking about Dawn of DC, a lot of the new launch titles that they have there. They're going to be talking about Night Terrors, Night with a K, which is
I've heard Night Terrors
this week,
and I've heard it's not bad.
Yeah,
from people who normally say it's bad. So I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, it looks pretty cool. It's a lot of tie-ins, but some of them are actually going to be taking place instead of the standard titles.
Yeah, it's much like Convergence to to allow the regular teams to get caught up, and it's the same format, 2 issues for a lot of them, and interested to see what that's like, because the free comic book day preview didn't knock my socks off, but I do think that some of the places where those stories can go, they're just inherently interesting. So yeah. Which and like you said, some of these teams on the regular titles, you're going to come back with fresh start, especially for the Flash and Wonder Woman titles. Mm-hmm. They're going to start over with number 1s after hitting their 800 milestone issues, and eventually Legacy numbering is going to come back anyway. Yeah, I think Wonder Woman's 900, isn't it?
Is it 900?
Might be. I don't know.
What are the other? But
I don't
But
know.
yeah, they'll be coming back with the legacy numbering in a while, so don't worry about it. If people are worried about, oh, I've been collecting all this time and now they're starting back with number 1, it'll be there.
So Wonder Woman, the most recent was $7.99.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
it's
it's gonna be
they're
800.
both 800. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But that's pretty cool. I'm glad that they have the panels, and actually one of them sounds really great, and I wish I could see it. And it's Between Two Toms, where both Tom King and Tom Taylor are going to be in conversation on their work and what they're looking forward to. So that'd be pretty cool. Marvel, of course, also has a pretty big presence panel wise and comic wise on the floor. They're going to be talking about, obviously, the big thing is the revamped and relaunched Ultimate Universe, the Ultimate titles from Hickman. So they're going to be giving us a lot of information from that, where the path forward is with that, and what we can expect. I think that's going to be a big thing. Plus, they've got the usual, lots of artists, lots of writers that can be there to sign and talk about their books. And then Image. One of the things for Image is going to be the Massive Verse. So Kyle Higgins, who's one of the main writers on the he's writer for Radiant Black, and has worked with the other creative teams for the Radiant titles of the Massive Verse. They're going to be talking about their path forward too. So they've got some big plans there. They've probably got some new titles that are coming out, some new tie-ins, and maybe some returns of some of the other characters that they've introduced, like Inferno Girl Red and Radiant Pink, etc. So it looks like there's going to be some good news. There's going to be a lot of comics centered panels and presentations, and just presence is going to be comics, which is what you'd expect from a Comic Con. But San Diego Comic Con is usually known, or at least lately, past 10 years or so, has been known for one major thing, and that is big movies and big, comic book, film, film studio announcements and news. And guess what? None of that this time. Disney and Marvel they're out of that. James Gunn is not going to be presenting anything about, the new DC film initiative.
Let's also first address that there's the implication of the writer's strike and the potential.
Yeah.
So a lot of strikes that there might come
writer
out
strike,
of it.
SAG-AFTRA might also be striking as well. So I mean, there's reasons for it. It's not so much like we didn't have anything to show this time. It's just they really don't want to take the chance of setting all this up and then not having anything
depending upon how long this goes. I think the end of the year might be really interesting, in that you may see some actors who never do personal appearances suddenly out there. I would not be surprised. Yeah, I would not be surprised if you see some very big names at least dip their toe in it.
Hey, it can be lucrative.
It can be very lucrative.
Just ask, everybody who shows up at Dragon Con every year, and just
ask any cast member of The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah,
because they all made more money from personal appearances than they did from their salaries on the show.
Oh, and they still do. I mean,
still do. Yeah.
Even the guys who are like,
and it's a cash business effectively. Even if you're running credit cards, it's effectively a cash business. So, what a racket! Like I told you, my friend's wife was up for the Tova Felcha part in The Walking Dead, and I did a little research about how much, and then she's like, "Oh God, now I really want to get this part."
It's fantastic.
Depending upon the franchise that you're associated with, it can be a cash cow for life. Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
Star
Trek, Battlestar Galactica. People from both, the original series and the new series, they show up. They, have lines wrapped around to sign stuff. So it's pretty cool.
All the wrestlers, all the Harry Potter actors who were in one thing. I mean, those people make all the Power Rangers that are still alive. Like they're making money hand over fist. I mean,
I don't know how much, because I do think that in terms of the recognizable Power Rangers, but I think after you get past Zeo, it's diminishing return how much interest there is in the personal thing, unless it's somebody who broke out
like Rose McIver,
like Rose McIver,
right. I mean, they're still making a lot. Like they're still making it's worth them being there, or they wouldn't be there. So they're still making money.
Absolutely. Yeah,
exactly. But there is some movie news. HBO Max, no main presence or anything like that. But Warner Brothers Entertainment is going to be showing off some things, a few sort of like Adult Swim related cartoon series and movies. Venture Brothers is coming back, and they're going to be featuring that. Adventure Time, stuff like that. The Babylon 5 animated film is going to be featured, as well as, and this is something that I think we're all going to be looking forward to, the Justice League War World animated film, R-rated animated film, is going to be premiering at San Diego Comic-Con. So, I mean, there is some stuff that's going to be there, just none of the live action stuff that we've come to use.
I am very surprised they're releasing it in that fashion and not at the same time having a PG-13 version available. Because they're, going back, I mean, it's back a few years, but there was, some controversy when Batman Beyond: The Return of the Joker got a PG-13.
Yeah.
And that was available in a PG and a PG-13 version.
I wonder if they will do something like that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even Killing Joke, I think Killing Joke has two versions. They have an unrated version and an R-rated.
Yeah.
Or PG-13.
Yeah.
I have a question about that, though. Are they doing a theatrical only release for a while, or is it going straight to...
I don't think they are, because I don't think the last few that they attempted, which were before the pandemic, really did much. The Killing Joke did some numbers, but I think some of if they are going to do a run, it's going to be like 2 theaters, one in New York, one in Los Angeles for one night over.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
So that's kind of why, that's what made me think about that. If we're now talking about not doing a theatrical release, and is it really worth it to put out 2 different versions if the bulk of it's going to be seen on a streaming channel? I mean, are there I'm not a parent, so I have no idea how strict parental controls are for the average hetero family or whatever. But it's, and we talk all the time how most of our comic book stuff is really for folks who are our age, right? So
yeah. Well, the original animated movies, those are those don't go to streaming those basically follow a film model of 45 to 60 days. So they're initially available for purchase, and then on the dinosaur that I am on home video. It's also going to be interesting with War World because Amazon was solicited in the pre-orders as this film has not yet been rated. Mm-hmm. So it might be interesting with because there are some naturally some people that are on the cusp of almost ready for R, but
for sure
there might be parental objections, and if it was pre-ordered and they get that without any notification, that might be interesting.
But I mean, that's I think in terms of film stuff, that's the animated films and series are where it's going to be at. So I think it's pretty cool. Oh, and there was one other interesting tidbit. There's usually sort of some kind of promo party and whatnot, usually with shows or movies. Well, Disney and Marvel are doing a real life Hellfire Gala. So they are doing that. Apparently it is limited though on who can attend to D23 members, but D23, it's really easy to get a membership. You just sign up for it and there you go. Now you can buy a ticket. But it promises to be, I'm sure, some amazing cosplay and some great pictures that are going to be coming out of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, because obviously I'm not attending.
I've never wanted Cena Grace to crash a party more than that one in my life.
That will be so cool to see. I'm so looking forward to a lot of really unique cosplay. Probably a lot of it's being put on by Disney and Marvel, so I'm sure they're going to go all out and making it look pretty cool. So a lot of thematic drinks, a lot of really cool stuff happening. So we'll see. But it'll be fun to see the results.
It'll be a gay old time.
A gay old time.
It's gonna be a very gay event.
Yeah,
very.
Some Krakow and Hoenn.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to dress like Scarlet Witch this time. Everybody's going to be Scarlet Witch. But you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's all I have for San Diego Comic-Con news. It is starting in 2 weeks. Starts 2 weeks from today, on the 20th, and goes 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So, if you are lucky enough to have passes to go, enjoy it for us and let us know what you think, without it having, that giant Hall H focus.
I gotta say, I really miss when G4 would cover it. I loved watching G4's coverage, and they could really take a few cues from Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah,
how to have content available.
I agree.
Well, it's interesting. Like, as much as I have like the FOMO, the fear of missing out for like some other cons, Heroes Con, New York City Comic Con, C2E2, I never have that for me around Comic Con, San Diego. And it baffles me every year. Like, I always have this resurgence. Like, my comics like friendom really is East Coast based, even though I'm in like mid America in Arkansas, down in this little cesspool of a shithole. Like, most of my people are East Coast based, and so it's always strange to me. I was like, it just really kind of focuses that.
But also, San Diego Comic-Con, that strikes me. It's a show I would love to be invited to.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because that's a very different experience.
I just want to be somebody's arm candy to the Eisners. That's all. Yeah. Like, just let me be your arm candy to the Eisners. If Zach gets another one, I'm gonna be his boo. That's all I want in life.
There you go. Hey, goals. We all gotta have goals.
Yeah. What else you got, Steve?
That is it. That is it. News-wise.
Well, we have a couple of other things. We talked on the TV front mainly about how bored we were about Secret Invasion so far, but for the other end of it, the other company, this happened during our break. They did announce that Superman and Lois is returning for season 4.
Yes,
somewhat abbreviated season, and more than half the cast has been released. I have to say, I watched up until the 3rd episode, and then everything got busy, but I mainlined episodes 4 through 13 recently, and let me tell you, that is one terrifying take on Lex Luthor. It is very promising about where they possibly could go, especially since Cudlitz is going to be a regular cast member. It was like jarring, I have to say, about those last 2 episodes. There's some dark shit. And
they are going to be making the move to Metropolis, so it's no longer going to be.
That's rumored. That hasn't been confirmed.
Really?
That's rumored. That hasn't been confirmed. But it would make sense.
It would make sense.
Given that everybody that's gone is living in Smallville. So,
I mean, I guess they could make in the first episode, just Clark and Lois walking around going, "It's really quiet. Did everybody move away? I guess everybody moved. Oh well."
I also have to say, because it seems, no matter what situation you're in, unless you have a renewal for 2-3 years down the road, you're seeing more and more shows treating a season finale as a series finale.
Yeah.
And they would have left Superman and Lois on a very exciting end.
Yeah.
The way that they provided
it.
Yeah.
I like that. Pick it up.
And it was also unfortunate for the other CW show, Gotham Knights, which did perform better than expected.
And it was better than I thought.
And has a fan following, but that was unfortunately canceled with 13 episodes.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
Well, at one point there was a lot of speculation because the CW was very open about wanting to continue with at least one DC-oriented series. That because of the cost, Gotham Knights may have been the more sensible choice to continue.
Interesting.
But they did find a way to make Superman and Lois season 4 happen.
Yeah.
So
It will be
that's a little bit of
weird.
news. And I think there were some other bits that we talked about, but nothing's really coming to mind.
Yeah.
Something that's comic adjacent, giving a former show that was on CW, and something that I know Steve and I have talked about ad nauseum at length for years, is the Nexium controversy. There was the announcement today that Allison Mack did serve out her sentence in Brooklyn, and she is a free woman.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that I'm sure she's got an exciting chapter planned for her next.
At the very
For
least,
her
it'll
next
be an
book.
interview, and it something like that definitely could have formed the basis of a third season of The Vow.
Yes, they could. I mean, the second season was all about the trial, and the third season could be the
and
aftermath
Nancy, and I
Yeah.
never expected to come away with sympathy for Nancy.
Yeah.
It's like, and you get into it, and Saltzman is a human being, and I felt at the end of that she was just as, though she enabled, she was just as much hoodwinked as many other people.
Cults, man, don't join a cult.
Yeah,
Kids.
don't
join a cult.
Call your dad.
Call your dad. My favorite murder. Call your dad. You're in a cult.
I still love that Kool-Aid Man shirt that says "Let's start a cult."
Oh.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Well, 78. Okay.
It's only been 50 years.
I know way too much about Jonestown. It's not healthy. I've listened to the death tape.
Ooh. Well, and also, by the way, not cult related, but true crime. There's another Zodiac series that's coming out next week.
Really? On what?
Myth
Where?
of the Zodiac. Gosh, it might be on Freebie or.
It's never far from me. It's never far from me. It's unhealthy.
See, it is about a cult.
Should we get into some comics?
Can we get away from the cults and talk about comics? Sure.
So my comic is about cults.
All right, so I understand both you boys have Marvel books. I think
we do.
Caleb has 2. Steve has 1, but both Caleb's are annuals.
They are.
So maybe let's start with Steve and then go to Caleb for 2 books in a row.
Sure, I think that'll work. So, my my book here, I was playing with the idea of going and talking about what's going on in X-Men, because that's what I tend to read mostly. And of course they're doing the Fall of X. That's happening.
I do have a question on that.
Sure.
With what you're talking about, does it cover, because I'm not reading it, but I've heard people belly aching. Hank? Is Hank covered in your? Sorry, at some point.
Not at all.
What's going on?
Not at all.
I'm about Hank McCoy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Hank's
got to tell me what's going on with Hank. Okay.
He's got some weird shit happening there.
Okay. All right, but talk about your book. Go ahead. Talk.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about possibly the next Fall of X book, which in this case focused on Apocalypse, but I was like, no, I talked about Fall of X. I talked about Fall of X. I'm kind of over Fall of X, but I do want to talk about an X-Men book or an X book. So rather than deal with that weirdness, I decided to deal with this weirdness, which is Excellent. The Excellent, which is a continuation of Ecstatics, which I believe is from about 10 years ago. But the Excellent is kind of the follow-up to that. This is the 4th issue of the 2nd volume. It is very weird. If you loved Ecstatics, then I'm sure you're reading this already. But if you're not, to give sort of like the little bitty summary of this, if I can, you essentially have 2 rival teams, who are competing to be the most popular on social media, and they're fighting against each other. They're trying to paint each other as the bad guys. The Excellent are really trying to, to save their reputations, while the Ecstatics are basically doing the opposite, and trying to destroy them. It is the most bizarre book. It's very hard to talk about without doing a lot of explanation. But needless to say, it is written by Peter Milligan. You've also got Mike and Laura Allred on art and coloring duties, and you've got Nate Pielos on letters. And they are just doing an amazing job here. It is a gorgeous book. It is extremely weird. If you love weird stories that are crazy and people that are completely inscrutable, this is the series for you. And of course, they all have really cool, weird mutant powers that are fun to play with. But essentially, by issue number 4, what's happened here is good old Zeitgeist, who at this point has stolen the Book of Vishanti from Doctor Strange, made a copy of one of the spells from it, and is trying to connect his social media ambitions to the spell, which essentially will make him a new golden god. And it all hinges on him getting 1 billion followers on their version of Twitter. And once he gets that, he will be transformed into a god, and he can control the narrative, whatever the narrative will be, about himself, about his place in the world, and everyone else. And of course, he's doing this by murdering most of his teammates. And just every issue, I think he's killed at least 1 or 2 of his teammates. And last issue, he murdered Tittlepip, who was his teleporter. She was a very, kind of sociopathic character, and also tried to stop him, but he ended up, vomiting all over her and, dissolving her in acid, like he does.
But there's no way you can murder somebody named Tittlepip without laughing while you do it, right? Like, you just have to laugh while you kill that person.
She or Toodlepip, not Tittlepip, Toodlepip. But it's just it is this whole book series. If you follow this series, every issue, when you start trying to think back after you finish reading it, and you think back and try to summarize it for yourself, like, what did I just read? It is a head scratcher. Everything is a head scratcher, but it makes sense in this world. So if you like weird stories, if you like weird science, craziness, satirical type work like this that features, mutant superheroes being everything but super, this is definitely a book for you. This is something that I love that Marvel is putting out. This is definitely something that if it was, if it didn't have the X somewhere in there and was X-Men related, probably never would have been published in the first place. But it is, it's just absolutely wonderful. It's one of the most Vertigo-ish titles, going back to what was Vertigo at the time, and now I guess DC Black, but not really. But it just ticks all those, Grant Morrison Doom Patrol boxes of just weirdness and craziness and silliness and just fun to read. So if you're looking for something that's X-Men related but absolutely has nothing to do with what's going on with all the Krakoan titles, pick up the Excellent, not XX, the Excellence. Well, pick up the XX too. Just go find those in the back issue bins. They're a lot of fun, and of course, everything with Dupe in it is always great. So, but yeah, this is it's a wild ride. I don't think anybody else here is reading this. So
I've read the first 2 issues. I didn't follow up though. I thought it was great. It wasn't something that I really latched onto, and but it looks amazing. It looks fantastic.
I think the gorgeous. Last thing I read in this world was All New Dupe.
Yes. All new, all different Dupe.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I mean, it's wild, and I mean, again, it's almost impossible to really describe, other than the fact that Zeitgeist is trying to basically become the most powerful person on Earth through Twitter, which probably isn't something that can happen nowadays. Actually, it's pretty much the opposite now. But yeah, it's bizarre, but fun. It's fun to read. There's my glowing recommendation.
Okay, cool. All right, Caleb, let's hear about your annuals.
All right.
What
Well,
you're digging.
let's jump right into it. And
And
Bill, since I'm doing 2 back to back, kind of like wave at me if my clock is ticking.
Okay.
So the first one, kind of in the vein of what Steve just spoke about, Krakoan related, but has nothing to do with the X-Men, but does have something to do with one of my favorite characters. I'm super excited about this. Scarlet Witch Annual #1, of course, 2023 came out. It is written by Steve Orlando, who has been doing a great job with the Scarlet Witch title. Carlos Nieto is doing the art, Triona Farrell is applying the colors, and Corey Pettit is doing the letters, as he is want to do. So just a quick rundown, man. If you haven't been keeping up with what's going on with my girl Wanda, she was persona non grata in the X world because she was the betrayer or whatever. Long story short, go read Trial of Magneto. She gave up her life, came back, started over, and decided to kind of start small. But before all this happened, she did some pretty big things, like she became the living embodiment of the actual Darkhold. Like, that's kind of a big deal. And then she also swallowed a demon. I don't really know how you pronounce his name. I think it's Chthon. I don't know. Anyway, a universe destroyer. It's like Cthulhu, but not. But what she's done since she was resurrected, she kind of came back and she just started her own little small occult shop where she sells things that Wiccan folks might need. But also in this, there is a door where people can come through if they need to, and we've talked a little bit about this. In this annual issue, though, we get to see her, and as you can see from the cover, we get to see Wanda be reintroduced and team up with an old friend, her old mentor, Agatha Harkness. Shows up because, quite frankly, now that Wanda is the living embodiment of the Darkhold and has swallowed Chthon or Scython or whatever his name is, there are people out there in the murky edges of the universe who are ready to take her out. Like, they want that power for themselves. And so our old friend Agatha has to come back and try to see where she's at. And she is going to test the waters to really see how strong Wanda can be and what Wanda's breaking point might be. And so she shows up one day, poisons her tea, shenanigans happen. And ultimately there is a rekindling of that friendship. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go check it out. Nieto's art is wonderful. I think it fits in great with the look that she's going for. It's a little, just a little bit kind of stock. So, I mean, that's an issue, but I mean, there's beautiful patterns throughout the book, gorgeous colors. You just get to see a lot. Like, these action scenes are phenomenal. And at the end of it, as all good things, there is a twist where we see that maybe the rekindling isn't so mutual as we might think it is. There are other things happening here. But really important, and something I'm kind of excited about, is a nod to Scarlet Witch #6, which is going to come out, I think, next month. And we're going to get to see her touch base with her boy. We're going to get to see Wiccan. There's a letter from Billy that's written in the back of this book to his mom, just saying, hey, we're coming to town, from the planet capital of the universe that we've been running, and hope to see you there. So very much looking forward to that. I love this character. I love that they've grounded her. I love that they've brought her back. She's still an incredibly powerful persona, but she is starting small. She's helping people, and I think that's the magic of this character. So the prelude to the contest of chaos that we are going to see come up between her and Agatha, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I know Steve Orlando is hit or miss for a lot of folks. Doing a really good job with this, doing great with this. So I'm super happy with what we're getting. And I'd be the first to say if I wasn't. So this is good stuff.
That's cool. It's so hard with Scarlet Witch. I mean, some of the things that writers have done with her have kind of made it really difficult to give her own title sometimes, or to bring her in on certain things. I mean, she gets knocked around pretty hard. Like, she's a major force in Marvel Universe, but sometimes,
Steve, that's a very good way of putting it. They manipulate the character in certain fashions that giving her own title is in a lot of ways untenable. at various points. Yeah.
I mean, it's something like if she's the most evil, like you said, she was persona non grata with the mutants because it's all her fault that so many of them died or were demutanized, essentially. I think that the Trial of Magneto did a really good job of sort of redeeming her and then making her a viable character that could interact with the X-Men again. And how long ago was House of M? Like, I mean, this is we're talking about something that's taken a long time. And then other things that they've used her for. Yes, she's got world-changing powers, but man, when you start actually putting them to use and then you destroy this universe or you completely rewrite history or you do all these other things, where do you go from there with the character when you've got somebody who's practically all powerful? So
which is what I love, that they've brought it back home, and she's just channeling that to help people, to bring it back down to a focal point. And another thing that I've liked that Steve Orlando has done so far, but before I move on to my next book, is he is referencing her love history, but he's not linking her up with anybody right now, which is great, because that's another thing they've always done. She's either with the Vision, or she's with the Wonder Man, or she's with Dr. Voodoo. She's all this, like, they're all the time hooking her up with somebody, and just let her be. Like, let her figure, like, let her have 5 minutes alone before we try to make her fall in love with somebody else or have somebody else's kids or something like that. So just really, and dude, this costume, oh my fucking God. Like, I adore this costume. It is everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good. It's I would say it's actually a little bit more modest than other costumes she's had, and a little bit understated with the with the crown cowl thing that she has going on. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Ooh.
All right,
awesome.
Book the second. I'm diving in. So we're going to jump over to my other two favorite characters, which are the Hulk and Bruce Banner. I don't know if you guys know this. Hulk fan. Lifelong, love the guy. Have my little blankie right here.
Bertel.
Keeps me company. So this one is the Hulk annual #1 that we just got, and this is actually a little bit of a precursor to the Hulk #1, which I have not spoken about yet on the show. I'm kind of biding my time. I know some other podcasts hit it pretty hard, and I messed up and I listened to them first. So I'm always weird about talking about a book after I've listened to it on other podcasts. I feel like I'm channeling somebody else. But this is called the Viridian Project. That's the main focus of this Hulk annual. Written by David Peepoys. Ko Mahado does the art or the lines. Edgar Delgado does the colors. And again, Corey Pettit doing the letters on this. I will say this new Hulk #1, extremely good. Absolutely love it. Great change of tone from what we've seen in the past, like the Kate Otley run. Loving it. This book, I didn't know if I was going to like it in the first couple of pages, because the book actually shapes itself like a found footage film. And I don't like found footage films. I'm not a fan of those. But I was watching it, and essentially there is this team of characters, right? All of them are in the film industry in some manner or way. And what they're doing is they're making a documentary of the Hulk. And then they have gone back to essentially ground zero of where the Hulk was created. They're going back to the town of Viridian, which is right next to the base, Diablos, where that original gamma bomb went off. And they're out there with their readers and like their Geiger counters and stuff, and they're trying to find things, and they sneak into places that they're not supposed to be. And again, they're filming everything when all of a sudden their instruments go haywire. And they end up falling into a little bit of a pit underneath, where, apparently gamma sewage has just been leaking and causing all sorts of chaos and problems, and has created some manner of kaiju, which is really cool. Anytime you get to see Hulk fighting big monsters, really great. We don't know, at least I don't think they ever gave a name in this book, but it's just giant, massive creature, and it's wreaking havoc, right? It's just wrecking shop. But also down there, and as Steve has been kind enough to put up the graphic, there are subterranean holes where moloids live. And so we are getting a glimpse of, to me, who I just look, one of my favorite Marvel villains. I'm like one of two people who loves this man for absolutely no reason. I love Mole Man. I think it's great. I've always said if they ever want to make a Fantastic Four movie and stick the landing, they need to do the Fantastic Four Mole Man as a horror movie like The Descent, and I think that would be excellent. And now we're getting to see some of those characters presented in a horror fashion. So this is some shit I've been saying for years. Somebody out there finally listened. Totally taking the credit for it, even though it's not mine to take. Just go with me on this. So as this team is about to get eaten by mole men, the Hulk comes down and he does his Hulk thing, saves the day, but not before sacrifices are made, right? Like, not everybody's making it out of here alive. Sometimes vanity gets the better of everyone, even in times of danger. And that's really what happens here. And as somebody who had the opportunity to make it out, they just didn't. Now, the back half of this book, you get a little epilogue, so to speak, and it really is setting up the characters that we're now seeing in Philip Kennedy Johnson and Nick Klein's Hulk #1. These monster creatures that are, I don't even know, we don't really know what they are other than some character named the Eldest, who is a body being inhabited by an elder god of some sort. So we're getting more into the horror universe. It's touching on magic. We're getting more monsters. And I said on a post when we were talking about this, these writers are not going full like Dante. They're not going full Paradise Lost like they did in Immortal Hulk, but we're still getting that body horror. We're still getting the monsters. They're still looping in those kind of early concepts of what the Hulk is, which is nice to come back to after this most recent run, which really I just did not enjoy, and it hurt my heart to say that because I love the creative team. So that's where we're at, man. It's a good time to pick up the Hulk. It's a good time to pick up Scarlet Witch. Highly recommend both of them. The annuals will get you caught up if you just happen to not know where to start and you don't want to go pick up those back issues. Great jumping on points, and really good job with these annuals.
Awesome. I haven't read Hulk in a while, but every time you talk about it, I'm just sort of like, yay. I get that excitement for it. It's obviously, the last series where
I think I have the first issue of the new series in my next DCBS box. I think
I can't wait to hear what you think, because I've heard some other folks who aren't necessarily fans of the Hulk who have really enjoyed it. I've heard some people who just, even folks that aren't keen on like big two books and Marvel and stuff, have really enjoyed it. So, and I'll talk about it on a later date when I can come at it fresh, just because, like I said, I don't want to taint. I need to reform my own opinions.
Yeah.
You did hurt my heart, though, hearing that you don't like found footage films. So
I don't. I've never.
That hurt my heart.
Even what was the one with the witch, like the real one?
It's okay.
Blair Witch,
not my thing. Yeah, Blair Witch. Yeah. Cloverfield, stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Hey, we just got joined by Dan Bryan.
Can go fuck him.
Well, okay. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Dan.
Thanks
Good evening, fellas.
You hit something with Cloverfield. I hate Cloverfield. Genuinely scary moments in it. Genuinely scary moments, but those people don't act the way human beings do.
No. Dan Bryan here also enjoyed the first issue of the Hulk, so that's another recommendation there, Caleb.
I'll have to check that out.
Issue #1 there.
Your check's in the mail, Dan.
All right, so for my first book, as we mentioned earlier, and you see the Firecracker Baby, it was my birthday recently, and sometimes, thank you, Dan, I still love Blair Witch too. Sometimes you get some gifts, and I got a gift from a particular co-host, Mr. Steve Morey, and you can. There's a glare because of the shine here, but if you want to put up the graphic, Steve, though he gave me a cornucopia of other little tchotchkes. The big gift there, though, was the hardcover collection of New Gods by Jerry Conway, and you'll see down there that there's Don Newton and Dan Atkins. I'll address those artists in a moment. It collects stories from 1976 to 1980 that were written by Jerry Conway. He had taken over the revival of the New Gods, and when the actual series was renewed, from issues 12 to 19, with a wrap up in Adventure Comics after the cancellation in 19. I think it's one of the most underrated Bronze Age runs of all. Now, it's a shame that they used this cover, because this is kind of like a lackluster Bronze Age, nothing to it, Al Milgram cover. But the main artist through most of these stories was Don Newton, the late Don Newton. We've talked about him on the show before. I think this collection would have been much better served by the illustration on the back cover there. I don't know if you can see that here. So why do I like this series so much? It actually reads like a modern comic book story. The situation is, and again, this is after Kirby's initial run with New Gods, there is some more distilled information available to both New Genesis and Apocalypse about what exactly the anti-life equation is. It involves Earth. It involves the military on the Earth. It involves a singer on Earth, some normal people, and the New Gods. And probably in the only time that they ever did this, and you can see that here, but just like the group formation of Orion in a new costume, and Forager, a new character, Jezebel, Metron, Lonar, and Light Ray. This is about the only time they've actually functioned as a superhero team in the way that you normally would think of a team. In a lot of the runs that we've had with New Gods, it was either Orion or Orion with a little bit of Light Ray centricity, and what didn't really have the feel of a team book, though there's some great stories in the various runs by Will Simonson and John Byrne. There's some great stories sprinkled here and there, but this is the only time I can think that the New Gods actually functioned as what you would think a superhero team. And it also was a time where they brought the New Gods more cohesively into the DC universe with the denouement, a 3-part crossover, which was the 1980 annual crossover between the JLA and the JSA, which also involved New Genesis and the New Gods. A bit of tragedy there, though it was very great to see for the first time George Perez draw the New Gods. The reason that he was doing so was because of the premature death of Dick Dillon, who was the regular artist on Justice League at the time. Dick passed away literally right after he sent out the pages for the first issue, and then George took over for the next issue. But I think anybody who would be reading this with the main story, which occupied the brunt of this, it reads like as you would like a regular arc in a modern story. It has that structure. There's a little bit of decompression because they take a long time to get to certain points, and I think modern writers post Bendis are very used to that, in a sense. And the art by Don Newton is just amazing, very shadowy, very heavy on the inks from Dan Atkins, but it's a shame that he's not around. He was a great Batman artist, was the initial, had a great run, abbreviated run because of his own death on Infinity Incorporated, and the Avengers work. There's other work out there. If you're unfamiliar with him as an artist, definitely seek him out. Steve, I also just wanted to provide there was another graphic, if you could put that up. So this was from the cover of the last issue of First Issue Special, which was kind of a tryout for what this arc is called, the Return of the New Gods. And so you see here Orion, and I would not be surprised if this costume was designed by Dave Cockrum, because that is a very 70s, very Legion feel. I don't know who actually is credited with the costume, but it's also interesting because it, at the same token, pays tribute to Kirby. With you got a couple of Kirby dots there effectively.
I was going to say the boots, especially
The boots, especially the
boots, the
gauntlets.
belt.
Yeah, I think it's very 70s, but I think this is one of my favorite costumes, and I think a problem with Orion is sometimes he's had real duds for costumes.
Well,
even in Kirby's run, it's basically like a red tunic and pants,
Yeah.
and
a helmet covering his entire face or most of his face.
A weird helmet. And this is my Orion because I was a kid when this was coming out. Also, I didn't enjoy Kirby's Fourth World in the first go round. I literally bought the last issue was my first Kirby comic, which was Mr. Miracle 18, which had Miracle and Barb's wedding. So, you got like previews there. But I think in terms of making a lot of the New Genesis concepts and apocalyptian concepts a little more digestible for most comic fans, I think you have to really turn to this. I think it's a remarkably underrated run. And again, I got this from Steve yesterday, and I started reading at 8:00, and I didn't go to bed till I finished it. It was a pleasure revisiting this, and I'm glad it's out there in a collected form because it took a long time. So thank you for that, Steve, and that's one of the books I wanted to talk about.
Awesome. David actually writes back here, Kirby dots the house down boots. Yes, Kirby dots on boots.
But at the same token, it also is, I would not be surprised if Dave Cockrum was the designer of it because it does have that like Disco Legion feel to it at the same time.
There's also a feel of like Geoforce from The Outsiders.
Somewhat, yeah.
There's that kind of,
especially with the hair coming out. Yeah.
Everybody liked having like the top of the hair, free and flowing, but the rest of it just kind of covered. It's very interesting. Yeah,
there's a lot of heavy stakes in this. One of the new gods dies. What happens when a new god dies? It's the first time we see that. Things that are followed up later on, particularly with Light Ray and Metron and Forager, especially Forager's status within the New Genesis world is somewhat of an outsider. It's a lot of that stuff was codified, and it's a shame Jezebel has never been seen again. I don't think she was any of the 90s or early 2000s. I don't think they've ever returned to that character, and as a female edition, which they were sorely lacking in New Gods, it was welcome. And I just think he had a great take on these characters, and I'm just so glad this exists. And it was a very pleasant read last night. All right, so if anybody, I will not have any berating of Orion's weird ass helmet, sir. It's a weird ass helmet. You just said it.
Yeah, James.
Really weird. The really weird one is the one that Kirby designed for the Superpowers line. That Orion costume is fucked up.
I'll have to find it.
You'll have to find it. Trust me, it's fucked up. Hello, James.
And James, good evening. By the way, you handsome gents. Yes.
But, you go love your helmet.
Well,
how does it affect Newton's art? It complements Newton's art. I think he's one of my favorite inkers who hasn't touched books in 20, 30 years was a guy, Steve Montano. And he was the inker on Guardians of the Galaxy, the Valentino series, and a lot of Valiant and the Craig Hamilton Aquaman. And he had a very, very heavy ink that never took away from the main artist. And I think the work that Dan Adkins does in this particular series with Don Newton. Let me just provide an example here of something that's heavy on the darks. If you can see that here, very heavy with the space and the facial there's a lot of dark in Isaiah and Highfather's beard, but I think it brings out a lot of Newton's strengths instead of covers up.
Yeah, to me, there's a very Mark Morales kind of idea behind that as far as what it accentuates in the original art, and it really just
I can see that. Yeah,
those lines, as opposed to somebody like Bill. So I'm reading I'm reading an omnibus right now that is Bill Sienkiewicz doing inks, and it's wonderful, but it's Bill Sienkiewicz, right? And so as he's inking, you still see, but he's nowhere near heavy like Klaus Johnson is, who Klaus Johnson just takes over and makes it his. So there's a spectrum of inks. All of them are heavy inkers, but I think this is more in line with like what Mark does with his work.
Yeah. If we can go back to Dan's question, do I think it serves as a bridge to Cosmic Odyssey? And I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that with the stories that are in here, including the just how the denizens of New Genesis function on Earth, plus the Justice League crossover, and there's also a team up with the Flash in here. I think it is a good bridge for the other members of the DC universe dealing with the New Gods. I think it's a good bridge, but the characterization of Orion is nowhere near the dick that he is in Cosmic Odyssey as he is here. He's very much a conflicted hero, and he's a hero. He's trying to be a hero. Whereas with Cosmic Odyssey, as much as I love that, and I love a lot of the developments in there, Orion doesn't treat Forager the way he treats him in there in Cosmic Odyssey. Let me just put it that way. So it is a good bridge in terms of the DC universe alignment, but it's not a good bridge in terms of the characterization. And it was very easy to reconcile that because that was post-Crisis anyway. So, yeah. But thanks for that question. It's a good question.
I want to appreciate Dan's first comment where he started off by saying Bill-Curious, and I also identify as that now. I'm Bill Curious.
Yeah. Bill Curious.
All right, so I'm going to move on from DC of the past to the DC of the present. I don't have the third issue yet. I probably will have it very, very soon when the books come, but I did start catching up on Dawn of DC, and one of my favorites was Green Arrow. And you have the picture there of the first issue, and I think you have the second. Where we leave Green Arrow at the start of this series is after the Justice League died and disappeared, Ollie's the one member that they can't find. And we see where he is, but there's also another return here. And that return is of Lion Harper, who was presumed dead in a very graphic fashion earlier as a child. And it appears that she survived thanks to the intervention of her mother and some other stories that have yet to take place. So you see here, it's Green Arrow, but it's also effectively the Green Arrow family. You have Dinah, Black Canary. You have Arsenal, also recently suddenly was revived. You have Connor Hawke in here. And it's the most cosmic story you could get with Ollie, I think, because there are some machinations of his and other characters reappearing and disappearing. And the third issue actually involves a Legion of Superheroes. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. But if you like Joshua Williamson, at least his early stuff with the Flash and how that was kind of like compartmentalized chaos early on, it very much has that feel. The artist, who I am completely unfamiliar with, I know the last name is Izaki, Sean Isaacs.
Hey Bill, it's actually just Sean Isaacs. He's South African. I've listened to him on a couple interviews. It's kind of like James Tynan. It's not so pronounced.
What else has he done? Because this work is really, really powerful.
Oh, he's done some great stuff. So he did some of the Avengers No Road Home stuff. He's done a couple things at Marvel. I'd have to look up his CV to really tell you everything.
Is this because this is the first DC work I'm familiar with?
I think he did some DC work on a very short run, just here or there, and I forget what it was off the top of my head because I grabbed it based on his name. He was
Okay.
somebody I saw the first thing he did at Marvel, fell in love with the style, and was really great. And then like befriended him on Twitter before Twitter was Twitter what it is now. And we actually like used to talk all the time, which I got off Twitter and haven't spoken with him in a long time. Really good guy though, and a very talented.
But I just love his sense of anatomy.
Yes.
It's these are archers' bodies.
Yeah.
These are very much archers' bodies, and I think he did his homework. And that's one of the problems sometimes with Green Arrow artists. Sometimes they will have a shot, but it's a shot only a left-handed archer would do, and that's never been established that Ali has that. I just really enjoyed everything about this and how much fun it is, because there's an element that I think is, in terms of the classic Ali, like Ali and Dinah are my favorite comic book couple, hands down. My favorite comic book couple, hands down. They're the sexiest. They're the I really wish that at some point there's like almost like a Thin Man version of that, because they could go, with Ollie's dough, they could go that route of the gentleman adventurer and his lady, and a lot of booze involved too, like through here and there. But there's been a lot of Green Arrow runs. As much as I loved what Jeff Lemire did, it wasn't a lot of fun. And this is fun with Green Arrow, and I do think that's an element to the character that sometimes is missing, and I'm glad to see it here. And it's just a very good combination in a creative team. And of the Dawn of DC, this while I do think that there are some books out there that we'll eventually talk about once there's a few more books under the belt, I do think this is the most enjoyable one that I've hit so far. So,
that's
and
cool.
I don't know if anybody else has read it. I don't think you have.
I don't see. That's the thing with Green Arrow. It's just hasn't been one of those books that I've really picked up. I mean, I've picked up a couple single issues here and there that have been interesting, but generally it's not a series that I read. But I mean, it sounds like it's pretty fun now. So
yeah, and there's so much you can do with the character. He's a 1%er who's against the 1%, and that can be the even comedically there could be a lot of fun stuff that goes through that. And I don't think with Green Arrow, I don't think there's been a writer that's really hit the character well since Kevin Smith. I loved what Mike Grell did. I loved what Denny O'Neil did. Of course, gave him a personality for the first time. There's been great writers associated with him, but I don't think there's been stellar stories for like the last 20 years. Not since those first two arcs from Kevin Smith, which have some of my favorite comic moments of all time in there. So this is very promising. I'm sure it's going to be I know, like with the Dawn of DC, the solicitations are a little sly, so we don't know if these are ongoings or miniseries. There's no one of there. But I hope this goes on a while because I really enjoy this.
Well, that's pretty cool. And actually, we do have a note here from Kevin. Shocker, I'm a big Green Arrow guy, liking this for what it is, but love the Kevin Smith arcs as well. So that's, it does sound like Kevin Smith really knew how to write this character.
Yeah. I mean, when he first sees Dinah again, and the first thing she asks is, please call me Pretty Bird again. I'm bawling. Great moments. And, the first hero when Green Arrow is revived and he meets his Aquaman, And he's like, so, are you still a monarch? Or do the people have a voice? And then Arthur just hugs him and goes, oh, God, Ollie, I've missed you. There's just wonderful moments in that series. And then, involving like Stanley and his monster. I mean, there's just great stuff there.
That's cool.
And that's always remained in print. Quiver has always remained in print. So,
yeah. And according to Dan here, Kevin Smith's Green Arrow made him a fan. So that is good to know.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
right.
right.
I wish I had another Marvel and DC, but I do not. In fact, I just have an Image title.
But it's a marquee. It turned out to be very much a marquee.
It turned out to be a very important title. So, several months ago when it was announced, Robert Kirkman and Lorenzo De Felici were going to be turning to this new series called Void Rivals to follow up with, with their last Oblivion Song series that just ended a few months back last year. And they didn't really say too much about it. It was two rival planets, around this sort of central void. They're warring against each other, and they've been doing so for so long. And there's really, a lot of history there. And it just seemed like a really cool setup for this book series, but there really wasn't a lot of meat to that description. So the book that I'm talking about, of course, is Void Rivals, put out by Kirkman and De Felici under the Skybound label. Mateos Lopez is on colors, and Russ Wooten is on letters. It's a great book. If it's well made, a very interesting story. The characters really, are pretty punchy right off the bat. And you're introduced really, on the first page to Derek, who's an Agornian, and his talking computer hand. And he's just been, attacked and crashes on a deserted planetoid. Fortunately or unfortunately for him, his enemy, a Zertonian named Solila, is also stranded on the planetoid with him. So, they first have a very, fraught encounter, fighting each other, and then realize, well, if they don't help each other, they're both dead. They're both dead on this planetoid. Nobody's coming for them, and their ships are kind of in disaster. But what they do try to do is work together. They realize, hey, we got to put our differences aside. They work together to try and repair their ship. Doesn't really work, with parts from both of them. So they're not really sure what to do. But they do discover another sort of crashed ship there. It seems really old, though. It's, in fact, thousands of years old that they discover. But they decide they're going to, power it up and see if maybe they can fly it off world. They power it up. And it's a transformer. It is an Autobot. So Void Rivals, by the way, is the first of the new Hasbro books that Skybound will be putting out. Part of Hasbro's move to Image to put out their licensed books, Transformers, G.I. Joe, etc. And this is technically the first Transformers book that Image has put out, or Image is putting out under this new license. So I did not know this going into it. I don't think any other reader really knew what they were picking up, other than, hey, it's a cool Kirkman book. It is also the first Transformers book for the new, for this new imprint, or not imprint, but new initiative. Of course, after you get to the end, to the last page, and let me see if I can put this back. The last page, of course. The Energon universe is what they're calling it. So the Energon universe has arrived with Void Rivals #1, and then, of course, upcoming releases for Transformers and G.I. Joe. So it's all going to be a big shared universe, and it's pretty exciting. And to be honest, if this is the quality that they're going to be putting out, I'm not worried at all. So I'm glad that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Daniel Warren Johnson is going to be drawing one of the books.
Yeah, he is going to be on Transformers. So he is Transformers Duke The first G.I. Joe book is Josh Williamson and Tom Riley, and Cobra Commander.
Oh, Tom
Whoa.
Riley.
Also,
Really,
yeah.
Josh? We thought Josh Williamson was like the one DC exclusive.
Nope. And Josh
I
Williamson,
guess
he's
things
writing both
changed.
Duke
Okay.
and Cobra
Wow.
Commander. So he's doing the both.
Wow.
But yeah, Dana Warren Johnson in October. So you got a couple months to wait. But Transformers #1 by DWJ.
I've made a decision with this stuff. Now, I was all in for the Revolution, the IDW that was, not just the G.I. Joe and Transformers, but they brought in ROM and Micronauts and Action Man. And it started off great, and then it just kind of the books that came after just weren't really interesting. With this, I think I'm going to go the trade route.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go the trade route. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I might do that for some of the other titles. For G.I. Joe, I think I'm kind of a little bit less, excited for. And I have some 80s Transformers comics that I absolutely loved. But I didn't read a lot of the IDW stuff. Free Comic Book Day and some of their other specials that they put out, I thought were pretty cool. But I wasn't a regular of the series. But here with Void Rivals going to be tying very heavily into Transformers, I'm really excited for it. And then Dana Warren Johnson on Transformers. I'm like, I mean, why not?
And it looks gorgeous. But I'm excited about Tom Riley. I didn't realize Tom Riley was doing one of these books, and he is amazing. I love Tom Riley. Love it.
Yeah. We do have another question here from Dan. The talk of Void Rivals is the Transformers appearance, but are we in for the rest of the book? I certainly am. And I think what's good about this, yes, it's a Transformers tie-in book, but Void Rivals is completely new. It's a new IP. And a new sort of aspect of this universe that we haven't really seen before. And I think what was really intriguing was the second reveal at the end of this issue. Obviously, in the middle of the issue, hey, look, Transformers. Oh, by the way, this is a shared universe now. But the reveal for the Agornians and the Zertonians, how they tie together, these rival alien races, like what binds them together is a very interesting, double page spread at the end. And I was very intrigued about that. So I think this title, and again, based on the other, Oblivion Song, I loved. I followed that all the way through, even with all their big, pauses and whatnot between story arcs. I thought they did a great job together, Kirkman and DeFelici on this book. And on Void Rivals, it looks like it's going to be just as interesting there. I love the way that the art really does sort of fit with this kind of, energy that Kirkman's putting into this. So I'm all in. So
I'd be interested to see what ramifications are beyond this, because the Hasbro had they had a writer's room set up. Then they had a lot of strange developments. The acquisition of Power Rangers kind of came out of nowhere, and it makes no sense to have a shared universe and not use IP like that.
Yeah.
If you completely control it. Micronauts film, Bear Connection with Dean DeBlois, that got canceled, which was going to be the first of their series. So it's going to be interesting, especially with a name like Kirkman. In any kind of driver's seat connected with this universe. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. I think there's seeds that are being planted here that we're going to see not in comics, but on screen down the road.
Well, and I do have to say, and I am going to be throwing out some spoilers here for anybody who hasn't seen the Rise of the Beasts, Transformers movie. Spoiler alert. At the very end of the film, the main character, Noah, is interviewing for a job, and the interviewer knows about all of his adventures with the Transformers, in the setting, where they were fighting against the evil Unicron and Scourge. And it's revealed at the end, he gets a business card. And as the wall opens up and there's this whole hangar bay with these, ships and all sorts of people in uniform and whatnot. He flips the card over, and it is G.I. Joe. So they've already planted those seeds. So it's already, it's already in the films that Transformers and G.I. Joe are now going forward are very obviously related. It's a good thing they did not try to do that with the last G.I. Joe film that came out, which was the Snake Eyes movie. That
which
was
I still haven't seen.
I have not.
I mean, there's no rush. It's not going anywhere, and and it didn't go anywhere in that movie either. It wasn't terrible. Don't get me wrong; it was not a terrible movie. I'm not screaming for my money back on it, but it just, unfortunately, I think they wrote themselves into a couple circles and just didn't really know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Transformers, the latest Transformers movie. Here it is, 100% obvious, 100% clear. They are connected to G.I. Joe now in the films. And so here they are in the comics with Image just out with a bang in the first issue. So, yeah, pretty cool. I'm looking forward to the rest of this.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping this show up. Now, one of the segments that we do towards the end is something we call Geek Gets, where we kind of show stuff off. I've been showing off a Geek Get the whole night. So let me just stand up a little bit so you get a better sense of this. This was a T-shirt I got as a birthday present from my friend Vince Tenebra. It might be hard to see this, but it's the bat symbol, yet it represents various villains. So you have the Joker, you have Two-Face's eye, you have some Killer Croc skin, and you have Mr. Freeze, some freezing here. So pretty nice design, I think. And as I get older and I got gray, for like once, navy blue actually works on me. So I'm very happy with that development. Navy blue never really did work for me, so now it is. So I'm happy about that.
It looks good.
But I got some other stuff. I got some vinyl albums. I got a couple other things. But some of the other gifts I got. One thing that I've never gone down the collecting route was Hanna-Barbera, and I'm just starting now. My first getting my toe with the videos was the Super Adventure stuff, the Space Ghost and the Hercules and that kind of stuff. So I'm going farther back than that to, the earlier animation. So I got 3 sets here from the classic collection from Warner Archive. So I got the Secret Squirrel Show with his cohort Morocco Mole. You got Peter Potamus here, and his sidekick here is So-So. And Lippy the Lion and Hardy Har Har. So I'm really looking forward to these 60s cartoons. They're not available anywhere else. They're not on any streaming platforms. And, with the way, with some of the particular obstacles and nutty decisions that are involved with Warner Brothers right now, who knows when they will be. So at least they have the archives. At least I can see them. And this is stuff I know that there's a whole generation in the 90s that saw a lot of this stuff on Boomerang. When that was happening, I was in my 20s and I was out there doing what people in their 20s do. I wasn't watching Boomerang. So it's been since I was a kid in the 70s since I've seen the majority of this stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, Peter Potamus, it's I don't know if you watched much from Bird Girl, but Peter Potamus is a frequent frequent figure in that, just because he's part of the board.
And some of these characters also had a presence in Jellystone.
Yeah. Yep. It's cool.
Steve, do you have anything? Yes, you do.
Well,
you've referenced it. You've got a poster in the back.
There's that poster. So this is basically this poster right here. This is the poster for the Scarlet Witch annual #1 that I put up because I knew that that Caleb was going to be talking about it. But I tend to get just handed a stack of these pretty much every time I go and pick up my comics from a Pennyworth's down in Charlotte. He just kind of keeps them aside for me because he's like, hey, I don't have any place to put them. Here, you enjoy. Oh, there goes there goes a dog. But yeah, so Phoebe just wanted to say that she was also really excited about
Hey,
the poster
Phoebes.
too.
Hey, kiddo.
Yeah. So, Steve, you got to shake this stuff like I never get gets. And you get get. These are things handed to you. You're nuts.
Well, I also picked this up. And this was something. There we go. So here's a get. So this is the soft cover version of the Judas Priest inspired Screaming for Vengeance graphic novel.
I don't have
There is
that.
a hardcover. And there's the album. There's the album that it's inspired by.
Oh, I've got that. It's downstairs.
Yeah, I got the vinyl in the bunker. And I saw this tour. That's how old I am. I saw this tour. And you want to know who the opening act was? In October 1982? Iron Maiden.
I was gonna say Uriah Heep, but
nope. Iron Maiden. And what album were they promoting? The Number of the Beast.
Yep.
So I saw the most metal show of all time. So, but talk about this.
Hopefully Phoebe doesn't want to interject, but basically, this is an interesting book. It takes a lot of inspiration from the lyrics, from the concept, all of that about a low-level engineer living in a ring of these cities that are orbiting the Earth. And I gotta apologize because I have to, grab this dog. Oh, no, I might not have to. So basically, he discovers that the power source that's keeping all these cities alight is slowly decaying, and he needs to figure out a way to do it. Well, of course, the people that he tells are unfortunately corrupt, they knock him down to the planet Earth, where he's down with the little people and decides that he wants to take his revenge. It's a cool book. It's a wacky concept. I love it. Who puts it out? Z2 Comics. So
yeah,
check it out again.
Okay, cool. How about you, Caleb?
I've got a few things. Yeah. So I'll start with the vinyl that I have. I got some new vinyl. This is the new album, and it's kind of an original album. Not original album, a debut album for the artist Sir Chloe. The album is called I Am the Dog. Very cool. Very kind of alt rocky, a little bit of industrial thrown in there. Reminds me sometimes of Sonic Youth in some moments, just with especially when they have some of their female led songs like Bull in the Heather or something like that. There's a lot in there. Really enjoy it. Spotify fed it to me at one point, so I picked up the album. I really like this album. I've listened to it multiple times and will continue to do so. Only thing that keeps me from listening to it over and over again is what is right now my favorite new album of the year, and that is Weather Vanes by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. Beautiful Americana. He's an amazing songwriter. I can't listen to this without just crying incessantly, as is true with most of his albums. He is a brilliant songwriter. If you've never looked up his stuff, check it out. Like I was never a Drive-By Truckers fan, but I retroactively have become, because I really like Jason Isbell. And then last but certainly not least is a little toy action from the fine folks over at NECA. I got the Brooklyn action figure, and with all of his awesomeness all up in there. So was very happy to get this. I've got the rest of his clan hanging out with me behind there. But dude, if you've never seen these, if you are a Gargoyles fan, as I know you are because you love me, like these are crazy, right? Like these are awesome. And I still can't believe we're all voting for Gargoyles #1 for the next Eisner Awards. It's going to be great. But yeah, that's my Geek Gets for the week.
Man, he got some thighs on him.
Yes, yeah, she did.
Every day is leg day for Brooklyn.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this show up with our last segment, which is something we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something similar. We woof at it's something that may be a comic book, yet it also may be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or possibly viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is going out to a film that just was released on Netflix, and it is based on a graphic novel. And I know, Caleb, you and I have been talking a little bit about this. Nimona is the name of this film. Put out on Netflix. It is just an absolute joy, nonstop from second one to the final credits. I love this film. It does change a little bit from the graphic novel, of course, but I think the adaptation that they made here is stellar. Front and center is the relationship, obviously, between Nimona and Bal, but also they do not shy away from the love story between Bal and Goldloin. They really are very clear about Nimona's sort of sense of identity, where she is neither girl, boy, she's everything. She is, beyond gender, beyond, classification. But I absolutely love this film. The action is great. The design, the sort of like mixture of sci-fi and medieval, the gags, in the background, a cereal commercial with the dragon. Like it's so much fun. Her transformations, her dialogue, everything's wonderful. Riz Ahmed and Chloe Grace Moritz are the lead voice actors in this, and their rapport and their delivery of all the lines. It's just, you just love these characters. You love them from the first second that you meet them. So I think this was excellent. I am so excited to recommend this to every person, that they must see it. If you've got kids, kids are going to love her antics because she's wild, but also be prepared to cry your eyes out several times in this movie. Absolutely love it. Nimona, available on Netflix right now.
All right, nice. All right, let's go over to Caleb and Banner.
No,
Caleb,
this
that's not Banner. I'm sorry.
this is Emmy.
That's that's my different floof.
So yeah,
she got the good years.
I've been absent from a few episodes, and so I was trying to think about what a good woof of the week would be for tonight. And I actually picked out a comic to talk about, but Bill spoke about it the last episode. So I've got a little couple of them. So the first woof of the week goes out to The Rocketeer, which you should go listen to Bill talk about it. And actually, I should go listen to Bill talk about it. I listened to it yet. It's an amazing book. There's a trio of stories by some great artists, and it ranges. Interestingly enough, I was reading a tweet, or not a tweet, a Facebook from a very prominent artist that most everybody knows. And he was talking about the difference in, and of course I can't think of his name when I want to, he's talking about the difference in nostalgia versus sentimentality. This ranges the gauntlet from nostalgia to sentimentality. The first story, beautifully drawn by Adam Hughes. Nothing wrong. Like I adore this. And just the pinups in the back are amazing. So the Adam Hughes story, total sentimentality. Again, with the next story that's written by Kevin Mayo and them, is fantastic. I'd say the Jay Lee drawn story was more of nostalgia. So I had fun with it all. Just really, really good stuff. And then there's, I want to send a woof out to you guys. Like, I've had a really tough couple of weeks. Lost a very dear person, and everybody knows that we are friends on this show. We're bonded by comics. We're bonded by the things that we really enjoy as far as popular culture goes. But we talk every day. For those of you who don't know, like, we have our own little chit chat, and we check in with each other every day, and we talk about more than just this stuff. We talk about life. And I had a rough couple weeks. Lost somebody who was very dear to me. And I don't know if I would have made it without just being able to reach out and talk to you guys. So again, from a sentimentality standpoint, thank you. Thank you all for being there. And it goes to not just you guys, but also the folks who are listening to the show. I had several people reach out, but especially to you two and to Brian. I appreciate our friendship. I really do. and it goes beyond just the stuff that we read. So thank you for being there. And that's
You're okay.
Oh, no, tearing up.
Well,
I also have
everything
"Thank
say,
you for being a
we
friend"
feel
stuck
bad
in my
for you.
head now, running on
Yeah.
repeat.
And
No.
we've all had, within the past year, we've all had rough patches.
Yeah.
And like as you said, Caleb, to have that pipeline of people we can always reach out to no matter what time it is.
Yeah.
You may not see the response, but I know when you're back online, it's going to be, a quick one. So I will echo what you say. It's a treasure to have you guys in my life, and always happy that this stupid little show, this stupid little podcast beget something bigger than it. So yes, thank you, and I agree with you, and thank you.
Yeah. I echo Bill here. I echo Caleb here. I mean, you guys are fantastic and amazing, and I was very lucky. I also got to, in the past several weeks, I've gotten to spend time with Bill. I've gotten to spend time with Brian just this past week while he was visiting in Charlotte. And eventually I'll be spending time with you, Caleb, at some point somewhere.
It will happen.
It will happen. But I also always know that, I've got an express line to you guys at any time, through just our chat. And I just know and am very lucky and very grateful that you are always there. So yes, yes to everything. And thank you.
And in the continuing pattern of Caleb having these heartfelt Woofs of the week, I have to follow that up. And of course, I'm going to follow up with an 80s pop band. Why not? All right. So my Woof of the week is also a Netflix film, and it's the film Wham! About the two members of that pop duo from the 1980s, the late George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley. It details their friendship. It's entirely the film is entirely in their voices from their interviews, which is a wonderful device, which I think really brought you into their world in ways that other devices, if there had been a third party narrator or had just relied upon existing footage, it wouldn't have been as effective a film. We go through their meeting at school. We go through George, contending with his sexuality. We go through the issues of being in a band where one member clearly is outshining the other and how that affects their relationship. And you definitely come away from this with an appreciation for Andrew Ridgeley of how much he did contribute to Wham in ways that may not have been apparent because George's star so quickly shone so bright. And there are certain bands out there that are, they're in amber, they're trapped in youth, whether it is the Jam or Nirvana or the Smiths, we never saw the older versions of those groups. And Wham! Are about the most commercial of that particular type of entity that I'm talking about. And in some ways, it's just as pure as the other acts that I've mentioned, because Wham! Are forever in their 20s in our eyes. There's a lot of people I know that have watched this film that, for me, like with Wham, I was, the new wave kid. And even though publicly championing groups like Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet was cool, Wham! Were a different story. That was the band we kind of whispered about, hey, I really love Club Tropicana. Do you? You couldn't really talk about that to other dudes, and and also, I think it's a very important document so that people get an appreciation of why acts didn't come out, why gay performers did not come out publicly at particular times. It's, some really interesting commentary. within that from the horse's mouths. It's only an hour and a half. It feels like 4 hours when you watch it because you really feel like you're entangled in their life. And I recommend it highly. It's by the same people that did what was the I know they did, the production team did Supersonic and Looking for Sugarman, but I can't, there's a big documentary that a big music documentary that the director did, and it's not Amy. It's driving me nuts. I can't think of it, but that's my recommendation. Wham on Netflix.
Well, hey, while you're thinking about that, Bill, I had a question. You said that they were using their voices for the interviews and stuff. Were they these actual interviews that they had just taken footage from?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Andrews may have been, for this film.
Okay.
But it is George commenting on his time in Wham.
The only reason I ask is I binged the Andy Warhol mini limited series or whatever on Netflix this past week, and they actually used an AI to give Andy Warhol's voice to read his diary, like the Andy Warhol diaries, which was odd. And it sounded like him, but every time, like, because we have subtitles on it, just says AI Andy, which I thought was strange. But yeah, so it's using AI to give Andy Warhol a modern voice, which I thought was, I didn't know if they did that or that, but I like that they're actually using their voices.
Yeah. Yeah. And George did a lot of interviews, so so I'm not surprised that there's content like this available.
I'm glad that later in life he was able to give interviews where he was, as authentic as he could be, or as his own self as he could be, instead of hiding who he was.
Yeah, I got the backstory in there. I got the backstory of one of my favorite songs he ever wrote, which is actually on the first Wham album. Nothing Looks the Same in the Light. I actually used it in a play as background music in a particular scene, and it's about one of his early sexual experiences with another man, and maybe that's why it touched me at age like 16 or whatever when I first heard it. So yeah. So Wham, go watch it. It's good. All right. So we're wrapping this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram. And by the time you listen to the audio version, on the thread as Comic Book Bears podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by downloading us through Apple Podcasts, listening to us through Stitcher Radio and many of the other podcasting platforms. If you've been following the news, Stitcher is coming to an end in August. So we've been relying upon a lot of the third-party podcatchers, and I think it's time that we do like an actual Spotify or Google podcast. I think we really have to get on that now because we get a lot of numbers from Stitcher. So I'm going to be sad to see it go. I don't exactly know why, because I thought it was. We got a check from Stitcher once for $8.33. I don't know why. Maybe we reached a particular plateau with them. And it was like one of those things where they were trying to get in touch with where to send the check for 7 months. Because it was all going. So we got paid from Stitcher one time. But it is going. It is. They are winding it down. I think that they are not. I think you can. The app is still alive, but you can't download it for a new customer. The radio portion, the website is still there. So you got us on Stitcher at least for another 2 months, but we will be addressing this, because we're going to have to cover that gap. It's good. I've been saying Stitcher Radio for so long. I know it's going to be 2025 before I stop doing it. And if you want to write to us, you can do so. And if you have suggestions, please do so. Send them to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you are watching us through Facebook Live tonight, thank you for joining us. Everyone who commentated, that's not even a word, who commentated. Thank you for participating in that particular fashion. And if you're watching us later on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We would really appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion if you're listening to the audio version. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
And Howard Chase, I was thinking about that did the